Yes, installing two adjacent 200 amp panels inside the building, fed from the 320 amp meter, is an option. Each of the two panels are fed separately from the meter. Each panel has its own main circuit breaker rated at 200 amps, and each is connected to the meter. You do not need separate disconnects for the individual panels because the main circuit breakers in the panel serve as a disconnect. You have a few options. Firstly, you can install a single 320 amp panel and divide the service into two 200 amp circuits using a subpanel or a breaker with multiple poles. Secondly, you can install two separate 200 amp panels, each with its own main circuit breaker. This is the configuration that you have described. The service entrance from the meter to the panel should be sized for 320 amps. The main circuit breakers in the panel should be sized for 200 amps. The subpanels, if used, should be sized for the load that they will serve. Make sure that the conductors used are rated for the amperage requirements of the panels and the subpanels. Install appropriate ground rods and grounding conductors as required by a code. Obtain permits from the local authority before beginning the installation. Hire a qualified electrician to perform the installation and the inspection. Installing two adjacent 200 amp panels, each with its own main circuit breaker, is a viable option. This configuration allows for separate metering and control of the apartment and shop while providing the necessary capacity for both units. When planning an electrical service, several factors must be considered to ensure safety, compliance, and optimal performance. Firstly, the service entrance conductors, which run from the utility company's connection point to the main disconnect, must be sized appropriately for the total load. This involves calculating the demand load of the building, considering factors such as lighting, appliances, heating, and air conditioning. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides guidelines and tables for calculating these loads. Secondly, the overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, must be selected to protect the conductors and equipment from overloads and short circuits. The size of the overcurrent protection device should not exceed the ampacity of the conductor it protects. This is crucial for preventing fires and equipment damage. Thirdly, grounding and bonding are essential for safety. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, allowing the overcurrent protection device to trip and to energize the circuit. Bonding ensures that all metal parts of the electrical system are at the same potential, reducing the risk of electric shock. Ground rods, grounding conductors, and bonding jumpers are used to achieve proper grounding and bonding. Fourthly, the location of the service equipment is important. The main disconnect should be readily accessible and located in a safe place, away from flammable materials and water. The working space around the equipment should be adequate for safe operation and maintenance. The NEC specifies minimum clearances for working space. Fifthly, the type of wiring method used must be appropriate for the environment. For example, in wet locations, conductors must be installed in a waterproof conduit. The NEC provides guidelines for selecting the correct wiring method for different applications. Sixthly, the installation must comply with all applicable codes and regulations. The NEC is the primary electrical code in the United States, but local jurisdictions may have additional requirements. It is important to obtain the necessary permits and inspections to ensure compliance. Seventhly, the selection of electrical equipment, such as panels, breakers, and conductors, should be based on quality and reliability. Using substandard equipment can lead to premature failure and safety hazards. Reputable manufacturers provide equipment that meets industry standards and is tested for performance. Eighthly, the coordination of overcurrent protection devices is important to minimize disruptions. Selective coordination ensures that only the overcurrent protection device closest to the fault will trip, leaving the rest of the system energized. This is particularly important in critical applications such as hospitals and data centers. Ninthly, the voltage drop in the conductors should be minimized to ensure that equipment operates properly. Excessive voltage drop can cause lights to dim, motors to overheat, and electronic equipment to malfunction. The NEC provides guidelines for calculating voltage drop and selecting conductors of the appropriate size. Tenthly, the labeling of electrical equipment is important for safety and maintenance. Panels, circuits, and disconnects should be clearly labeled to identify their function. This helps prevent accidental energization or de-energization of circuits. When dealing with the 320 amp service and two 200 amp panels, there are specific considerations to keep in mind. Firstly, the 320 amp meter must be capable of handling the total load of both panels. The utility company will typically specify the type of meter and service entrance equipment required. Secondly, the conductors from the meter to the panels must be sized for 320 amps. This may require the use of multiple conductors in parallel. The NEC specifies the requirements for paralleling conductors. Thirdly, each 200 amp panel must have its own main breaker. This provides overcurrent protection for the panel and allows it to be de-energized independently. Fourthly, the load on each panel must be balanced to prevent overloading one side of the service. This involves distributing the circuits evenly between the two panels. Fifthly, if subpanels are used, they must be sized appropriately for the load they will serve. The subpanel's main breaker should be sized to protect the subpanel conductors. Sixthly, the grounding and bonding of the panels and subpanels must be done in accordance with the NEC. This typically involves connecting the neutral conductor to the ground bus in each panel and bonding the metal enclosures. Seventhly, the installation must be inspected by a qualified electrical inspector. The inspector will verify that the installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Eighthly, documentation of the installation is important for future reference. This includes a wiring diagram, a load calculation, and a list of all equipment used. Ninthly, consider the future needs of the building when designing the electrical service. It may be wise to install a larger service than is currently needed to accommodate future expansion. Tenthly, work with a qualified electrician who has experience with this type of installation. A qualified electrician will be familiar with the NEC and local codes and will be able to ensure that the installation is done safely and correctly. In the specific scenario of a residential 2-story building with a 1,100 square foot apartment upstairs and a 2,000 square foot shop downstairs, the load calculation should take into account the different types of loads in each unit. The apartment will have typical residential loads such as lighting, appliances, and heating. The shop may have heavier loads such as power tools, machinery, and welders. The load calculation should also consider any potential future loads such as electric vehicle chargers. Based on the load calculation, the electrician can determine whether a single 320 amp panel or two 200 amp panels are the best option. If the load is fairly evenly divided between the apartment and the shop, two 200 amp panels may be the better choice. This allows each unit to have its own dedicated panel and simplifies load balancing. If the load is heavily concentrated in one unit, a single 320 amp panel with subpanels may be more appropriate. This allows the larger loads to be fed directly from the main panel, while the smaller loads are fed from the subpanels. In either case, the service entrance conductors must be sized for 320 amps, and the overcurrent protection devices must be selected to protect the conductors and equipment. The grounding and bonding must be done in accordance with the NEC, and the installation must be inspected by a qualified electrical inspector. In addition to the above considerations, it is important to coordinate with the utility company to ensure that the service entrance equipment is compatible with this system. The utility company may have specific requirements for the type of meter, disconnect, and grounding electrode system used. It is also important to consider the aesthetics of the installation. The service entrance equipment should be located in a place that is not unsightly and does not detract from the appearance of the building. The conductors should be run in a neat and orderly manner, and the equipment should be properly labeled. By carefully considering all of these factors, you can ensure that the electrical service is safe, reliable, and meets the needs of the building occupants. Remember to consult with a qualified electrician and obtain the necessary permits before beginning any electrical work. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to follow all applicable codes and regulations to prevent injuries and property damage. Firstly, consider the physical layout of the building. Determine the best location for the meter and the panels. The location should be accessible for maintenance and inspection, and it should comply with local codes regarding clearances and working space. Secondly, evaluate the existing electrical infrastructure. If there's existing wiring or equipment, assess its condition and compatibility with the new service. Determine whether any upgrades or modifications are necessary. Thirdly, create a detailed wiring diagram. This diagram should show the location of all components, including the meter, panels, breakers, conductors, and grounding electrodes. The diagram should also indicate the size and type of each component. Fourthly, develop a load calculation worksheet. This worksheet should list all of the electrical loads in the building, including lighting, appliances, heating, cooling, and any other equipment. The worksheet should also calculate the total demand load, taking into account diversity factors and other adjustments as required by the NEC. Fifthly, select the appropriate conductors. The conductors must be sized to carry the calculated load, taking into account ampacity, voltage drop, and other factors. The conductors must also be suitable for the environment in which they will be installed, such as wet or dry locations. Sixthly, choose the correct overcurrent protection devices. The overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, must be sized to protect the conductors and equipment from overloads and short circuits. The overcurrent protection devices must also be compatible with the panel and the conductors. Seventhly, install the grounding electrode system. The grounding electrode system provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, allowing the overcurrent protection device to trip and energize the circuit. The grounding electrode system must comply with the NEC and local codes. Eighthly, bond all metal parts of the electrical system. Bonding ensures that all metal parts are at the same potential, reducing the risk of electric shock. Bonding dampers must be installed between all metal enclosures, raceways, and equipment. Ninthly, label all components clearly and accurately. Labels should identify the function of each component, such as the panel, breaker, or circuit. Labels should also indicate the voltage, amperage, and other important information. Tenthly, test the installation thoroughly. After the installation is complete, test all circuits and equipment to ensure that they are working properly. Use a multimeter to verify voltage, current, and resistance readings. Use a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, tester to verify that GFCI circuits are functioning correctly. In addition to these technical considerations, it is important to communicate effectively with the building owner, tenants, and other stakeholders. Keep them informed of the progress of the installation and address any concerns they may have. Be respectful of their property and privacy and minimize any disruptions to their daily lives. By following these steps, you can ensure that the electrical service is installed safely, efficiently, and in compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to hire a qualified electrician to perform the installation. A qualified electrician will have the knowledge, skills, and experience necessary to do the job safely and correctly. Ensure that the electrician is licensed and insured, and ask for references from previous clients. Get a written estimate before the work begins, and make sure that the estimate includes all costs, such as labor, materials, permits, and inspections. By taking these precautions, you can protect yourself from liability and ensure that the electrical service is installed to the highest standards. Additionally, consider the future expansion of the building when designing the electrical service. If there is a possibility that the building will be expanded or renovated in the future, it may be wise to install a larger service than is currently needed. This will avoid the need for costly upgrades later on. Also, consider the energy efficiency of the electrical system. Use energy-efficient lighting, appliances, and equipment to reduce energy consumption and lower utility bills. Install occupancy sensors and timers to control lighting and other loads. Use programmable thermostats to regulate heating and cooling. By implementing these energy-efficient measures, you can reduce the environmental impact of the building and save money on operating costs. Remember to keep accurate records of the electrical service installation. This includes the wiring diagram, load calculation worksheet, equipment specifications, permits, and inspection reports. These records will be valuable for future maintenance, repairs, and upgrades. Store the records in a safe and accessible location, such as a fireproof cabinet or a digital file. By maintaining accurate records, you can ensure that the electrical service remains safe and reliable for years to come.